Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. It is Ben, it is Milton, and it is I, Starrapter, back for episode 11 of Outer Rim Transmission. This week, we're going to go all over the rumor mill with the Book of Boba Fett and with the Cassian Andor series. Plus, we'll catch up with a few other things, including the Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 7. So here we go. What did you guys do for Star Wars this week? Did you have any kind of notable stories, anything you guys want to mention? I'm going to throw it over to Milton first because you sent us a lot of really cool pictures. So explain to everybody listening what that's all about.
Yeah, so it kind of happened by accident, but I kind of had it planned to do it eventually. So today on my lunch break, I decided to go check out this place in my town called the Nerdvana Post or Outpost, and it's like a nerd gaming type store. When I walked in, I couldn't believe what I saw. There's a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff that was available to us, whether it was toys, lightsabers, helmets, any type of memorabilia stuff. So the owner's a huge Star Wars fan. So as I was checking it out, I noticed a lot of things that really caught my eye. For example, we just talked about this about 2 weeks ago. Just some of the games that Star Wars have come out with, and she legit had the Star Wars trilogy arcade game refurbished, and it works. And she's like, you can play it anytime you come in. Just got to bring your tokens or whatever. It was
Oh,
off the chain. So I just took a whole bunch of pictures of the place. Looked at the action figures, whether it's Black Series, Power of the Force, Elite Series, anything they had it. Like I said, it was awesome to see. It was nice to know that there's a market out there for these type of things. There's a market for collection and toys and books and all that stuff, type of stuff. And even in a small town where I live at, like, it's still a significant thing. So I decided to share that with the fellas today through pictures. It was an amazing thing. So I already know that I'm going to be going back to that store again and probably making a lot of purchases. Probably what I shouldn't be doing, but I'm probably going to do it anyways. So
yeah.
yeah, that was my thing in Star Wars this week.
That was a lot of fun because you sent us like about 8 or 10 pictures, and
Yeah.
immediately I was like, oh my gosh, there's like half those Bad Batch figures and all those things I've never even seen in a while. Like, good luck. Like, my Walmarts are always cleared out. There's nothing on the racks. There's
Right.
nothing in Target. It's just a wasteland, and that's why I like going to like Comic Cons and stuff. Why I can't wait for them to come back again at the end of the year, because that's where I start to pick up some of the rare stuff, because they all have them. All the little stands have them. But yeah, it's always fun running into places like that. I mean, the closest thing I have to that is my local comic book store, but like, they have everything. It's not just Star Wars. They have a very small selection of Star Wars. They do have like a little
Right.
clear glass case where they have like different Batman statues and stuff. And they recently have been getting in like the classic or not the Hasbro, but the Kenner figures, and they have them in like the plastic baggies, like from like the 1980s and stuff. So that's really cool. But it's always nice when you have
Yeah.
like those kind of places, the independently run places that they still are in business. It's cool to support those people, because it's those types of businesses that really are a great place to hang out and see stuff you'd never see anywhere else.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, like, legit, when I walked in, like, and what's cool about that place too, they had like five, like, helmets, whether it was Stormtrooper, Darth Vader, Boba Fett, whatever. And when I saw that, the owner came out, she's like, we actually have like a huge like Star Wars collection in the back. And my eyes like lit up like I was 10-year-old. And I was like, wait, where's it at? And she walked me to the back, and she had like this Hot Toys Baby Yoda that she's like, oh,
Oh,
she's like, this is my favorite thing. Like, this thing's never gonna go for sale. And she just like brought it out with her. It was legit. She had a Kylo Ren lightsaber. She had the
oh,
Darth Vader, like the Black Series lightsabers, but they weren't for sale. But she says anytime we get lightsabers that are donated to us and we sell them, like, they go out quick. So like, you really have to pay attention to like their Facebook page and whatnot. But yeah, it was just a cool experience, man. And then it's nice to know that, and these she had been older than me by like 10 years. So like, at least it's nice to know that that generation is still like all about the collection component, the memorabilia, selling that stuff, and just sharing these good memories about Star Wars. Because again, to some people, Star Wars is like a religion and it's a lifestyle, and really, Star Wars, when it's not being divisive or causing problems, it can very much unify people, whether it's through toys, movies, cartoons, books, or whatever. So it was nice to see that place and nice to have that feeling again of like, man, like I feel like I'm a 10-year-old kid walking
Hmm.
into like a candy shop. But in this case, it was Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
So it was just cool, man. I love it.
Yeah. Like that feeling is just always so fun. Like that, especially have like an outsider like watch your reaction when you go
Yeah.
like hype mode like that. You walk into a store and it's got all the stars. I just like jaw just drops. Like I have like that sparkle in my eye. Like I gotta check out all of this stuff right now. And everybody else is looking at me like, whoa, what's wrong with you, dude?
This
Like
guy,
it's
yeah,
Star
right,
Wars,
right.
man. I gotta
It's
check
funny
this
though.
out.
Yeah, but that's and like I said, I even told Liz, like, can I take pictures? And I was like, yeah, I do this podcast on Friday nights with my buddies. I'm like, they're gonna want to see this. So she's like, yeah, no problem. And so, like I said, I think it's nice to share that with a community. And I think
Yeah.
that to me that was such a cool thing that this owner allowed me to take photos, but share this experience with friends that I care about, and with the Star Wars community. So it's great to see that they want to continue to embrace that.
Yeah. If you want, you can give them a shout out. Feel free to just like call them out in case there's people in your area that want to go check it out. What's the place called?
Yeah, it's called the Nerdvana Outpost or Nirvana Post. It's in Chambersburg, PA. They have a Facebook page, so check it out. I mean, it's not hard to find. Like I said, it's super legit. They're able to ship you items if you
Hmm.
order it off their websites or whatnot. So that's just cool. If you have any questions about what they might have on their page, shoot them an email, shoot them a message on their Facebook page. They're pretty responsive. And they try to like work with the people that are interested in the product.
There you go. Hey, Ben, do you have any kind of local stores or comic book stores in your area that you ever go to that sell random Star Wars merch or anything?
We have a local comic book store here in the town I live in Defiance, but it's very slight and small, I would say, and it's very far and few between like the amount of Star Wars stuff that's in there. Mainly, you'll see a few comics, things like that, but you won't see any type of like, all the figures and all the things that Milton was sending us. Like you won't see anything like that here. So, just seeing other like little towns like still having a passion for Star Wars, like the people, like you said, Milton, the woman was like what, 10 or so years older than you. So like, that's another generation, but still like seeing people still have a passion for Star Wars, it's an amazing thing how it crosses basically all generations.
Yeah, it's really cool about just having that generational gap of, 10 years. It's like, I always talk about, like, what did you grow up with Star Wars? Did you grow up with the prequels? Did you grow up with the original trilogy? Maybe you grew up with the novels in between or the Clone Wars even. A lot of people grew up in that era too. So it's really nice seeing that generational gap. And speaking of generational gap, my Star Wars experience this week was a pretty fun one. And my friend I've been introducing to Star Wars, we both watched like the Phantom Menace. I started her out on the prequels, right? I was, well, she's seen the original trilogy. I'll put it to she's seen the original trilogy, never seen the prequels. So I'm watching with her the different prequels, and we were able to watch Attack of the Clones together, which is kind of fun because she's never seen that one before. And it's got a well-known reputation in the Star Wars fandom as being quite cringy and quotable at the same time. So it was a fun experience just kind of sitting around and just kind of just being awkward about, wow, what is Anakin doing with Padme? What is going on here? But I guess that kind of sparked my question to you guys after that experience of sitting through some of the prequel movies is, do you still, like, if you're going to introduce somebody new to Star Wars, are you going to start with the original trilogy? Or are you going to start with the prequels? Or, hey, maybe you'll even start with The Mandalorian. What would you suggest would be your starting order for the Star Wars movies right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think me personally, I say start with the prequels. I mean, especially for someone who's never seen it, and it's a fresh face because, one, I want them to understand, like I think the Anakin character, especially with just look at the films, the Anakin character, I can understand why people can say, well, he's not as fleshed out. He just seems very like quick to change and transition. He's kind of whiny. Whatever. It is what it is. Clearly, with the Clone Wars, it helps his character. But just with the films, I would start with the prequels and I would explain to that person, look, you're going to see the perspective of a 9-year-old boy in this first one. You're going to see his quips and how annoying he can be and how weird he can be. In the second film, you're going to see a teenager who's maturing into a man who still has a lot of immaturity in his life because of his situation. But I think seeing the prequels, in my opinion, will help bolster, I think, Darth Vader's character and his relationship with Luke. Because again, let's be real here. Darth Vader's a tragic Greek character. Like he was the prophet who was going to bring balance to the Force. And then all of a sudden he got, manipulated and became selfish and had all this jealousy, which he lost his life, his body, his wife, his kids. And then all of a sudden he was able to turn back around to have that relationship with his son later. So it's nice to see that full circle. That's why I think I would want to show the prequels first. I don't think there's a wrong answer here, but I want them to see the height of the Jedi and the height of the Republic and as it crumbled. It's just cool to see that because I want to be able to watch my friend or whoever I'm with to really see how they see the tragedy of Anakin and the tragedy of the Jedi and how then, Luke became that person later.
Yeah, because my thing I want to see is the person experience the fall of Anakin Skywalker. I want to see that moment when it clicks with the person, because everybody knows who Darth Vader is. Even if you've not watched the Star Wars, they know what that person is. They know that he's from Star Wars. So I want to see that reaction of somebody just being like, oh my gosh, he turned into Darth Vader. Like that'd be just so fun to like film somebody's reaction to that if they have no idea.
I mean, even seeing like, his burning, spoilers, him burning in Revenge of the Sith, like I guarantee you, especially if you have a female friend who's like super emotional and gets invested in Hayden Christensen's character, when she sees that person burn and it's like, oh my God, And I remember when I was 17 or 18 when that movie came out, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, they really went that far with it. Like they really burned him, and for 2005, those graphics still hold up. Like that makeup still holds up. So I think seeing that makes Darth Vader's character even more significant, especially when you go from that to Rogue One and then to the original trilogy. Those three films, honestly, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, and New Hope, work perfectly, in my opinion. If you just showed people those three movies, you have like there's no way they would not love Star Wars or even like it.
Yeah. You are right on that. And speaking of things holding up, I kept mentioning to my friends we were watching Attack of the Clones saying, oh man, Yoda really holds up quite well. Like the CG. Now I know they must have touched him up with the Blu-ray release and stuff like that, but still to see like the template there from 2003 or 2002 and he's still holding up. I'm like, damn, this is good stuff,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like I said, for 2002, technology, a lot of CGI in 2002 was trash and a lot of like superhero films and that type of stuff. But for Lucasfilm, for them to sit there and like take Yoda, who was garbage in Phantom Menace, we know how that was in 1999. He did not look like he should have been looking. And I think they tried to mimic the Empire Strikes Back version, but it just didn't work. But when they made him digital, what? Like he looks so real, and it's like I said, you're right. They touched him up as years went on. That's okay because it still holds up in 2021.
Yeah, awesome. What about you, Ben? Man, what did you do this week? Was there anything to recall with Star Wars? What's going on with you?
Well, excuse me, but to add to the order to watch the movie, in my opinion,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion, my thoughts on that really have changed, over the years from, it was originally 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, because the Vader reveal for Luke's, being Luke's father and all. But at this point, I feel like, in general, since that's such an iconic moment, I feel like it's already been spoiled for the most part. Like everybody knows Vader's Luke's father. So at this point, you might as well watch them, 1, 2, 3, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. Because, everybody knows who Vader is. So you might as well watch them. And like you said, see the downfall of Anakin versus, trying to wait for the surprise, because you could potentially get to the moment Empire, and then whoever you're watching with be like, oh, I already know that. So it would kind of defeat the purpose of watching them in that order.
Oh, that is
I
a
would.
good point. That is a very good
Yeah,
point about Luke. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll add on to that, Ben. And two, like I think you make a great point because let's be real here. People like we know the story of Vader as hardcore fans. I get that, but someone who's like a random person that's know of Star Wars and know who Darth Vader is, they started Episode 1. They may not even remember by the time they get to Empire, that's Anakin because again,
Yeah.
because remember you're gonna throw in Rogue One in those movies as well. So you'll go from Revenge of the Sith, New Hope, Empire. Then they're gonna be like, okay, that's Anakin, right? And all of a sudden, when they're gonna start refreshing themselves, it's like, oh, that's right, I forgot. He did, like again, like those
Yeah.
random people who aren't hardcore sweaties are gonna be like, oh, okay, I remember, like, and it's gonna be kind of fresh to them to see how Luke is going to react to that's his father. Because again, it's gonna be nice to see the audience reaction of wait, how does Luke gonna feel about this when he figure out that's his dad? Like that's still a surprise. Like that's
Yeah.
awesome. Because
Oh yeah,
as
for
as
sure.
because as an audience member, we were so caught up with the reveal of from Vader's perspective. Oh wait, I am your father. From the other person is going to say, wait, what is Luke going to say? Because they already know that Anakin is his dad, but they don't know that Luke doesn't know. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's just gonna be cool to see how they would then take that perspective. So
Oh
again,
yeah.
I think there is one wrong answer. You don't show them the sequel trilogy first. Facts. I'm just being real.
That is
Yeah,
so
you
true.
don't show them the sequel trilogy first. You let that one sit because whatever. Especially don't show them the Last Jedi until probably later. But whatever.
Well, watch Mando before that.
I was about to say, Mando, Book of Boba Fett,
Bad,
pretty much
bad.
all the shows before you get to the sequel trilogy. Just let's be real here.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts on that. And then for me this week in Star Wars, didn't have anything as exciting as Milton, but as I was working out this week, I listened to the interview that Variety, they do this interview series. It's between actors where they bring on two actors to interview each other for like 35 minutes. And this week it was actually Pedro Pascal and Ewan McGregor. And
Oh.
it was a really good interview. Of course, they both kind of like, were playing around, with their questions back and forth to each other just because, they both know, we can't really reveal anything about Star Wars. But it was cool hearing their perspectives, like, as we were mentioning, Star Wars crossing generations. Like Ewan McGregor talked about how, like, he grew up with Star Wars. Like, he went to the theater, saw his uncle who was playing in A New Hope, Dennis Lawson, who plays Wedge, for anybody who doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And then, on the other hand, Pedro Pascal was talking about how, he grew up a huge Star Wars fan, and basically he was a big fan of all of our classic filmmakers of like the 70s and 80s. Like he was a huge Star Wars fan, huge Indiana Jones fan, Jaws fan, like all those E.T., those type of movies, basically all the Spielberg movies. He grew up being a big fan of those. And then it was just cool hearing how Pedro Pascal actually, there was a movie of Ewan's in the 90s that, Pedro Pascal was like in his early 20s or something. He saw Ewan McGregor in that movie and like he thought he was a great actor. So he was like, oh man, I should kind of like model my career after this guy and, really keep a close eye on him for like basically to take acting cues from. So Pedro Pascal actually like modeled a lot of his acting off of Ewan McGregor's, which is just like a neat little snippet that was in that interview. So of course that was neat, and it was great seeing Ewan McGregor. He has the full Obi-Wan Kenobi beard, so
I've seen that.
That's awesome. And then the big thing that came out of that interview though was you had Pedro Pascal said Mando season 3 has not started filming at all yet. But the other interesting thing, like besides that, is Ewan McGregor dropped the first little, not spoiler, I mean, I guess if you want to call it a spoiler, any little detail. But he dropped the first little thing about Obi-Wan. He said there was a scene. He said he couldn't believe it because, when he was in the prequels, he was just around clone troopers. And he said there's a scene in the Obi-Wan show where he's sneaking past stormtroopers, and he said he had to reshoot the scene like 2 or 3 times because when he walked past him, he was like, holy smokes, those are the things that were in the original movies I watched when I was a kid, and I can't believe I'm actually on set walking past them. So it was cool seeing. Yeah, so that was kind of a little significant piece of info because, to me, I highly doubt he's going to be sneaking past stormtroopers on Tatooine at that time. So I think he's going off planet because where else would he be interacting with stormtroopers at?
Yeah. So let me break down a lot of things. That's actually a lot of information right there we can break down. It's not even like part of our official news story. But I'm happy you brought that up because I've been meaning to watch or listen to that, but I just haven't had time and I didn't remember about it. But talking about him not being with stormtroopers, think about it. There wasn't ever a physical clone trooper costume ever in Star Wars. So everything he's seen was just like Tamora Morrison just walking around and like they would CGI it in later. So there wasn't really people even in white clone trooper suits. So that's why he was like so surprised, right? It's like, oh, I'm actually acting with soldiers, And the other point, that's a big point that I just was thinking about. I think the only reason why the stormtroopers were ever on Tatooine is in reaction to the escape pod hitting Tatooine. I don't even think there was a garrison there, to my knowledge, before the events of the Maz Eisley. So that even adds more credence to the fact that he must be going off planet if he's saying there's stormtroopers. Because I don't think there probably were any stormtroopers. Why would they be interested in a Hutt-controlled planet? Like, we know the comics and stuff, like, they do not, like, want to be on that planet. That the Hutts control that part of space. They don't mess with them unless they have a severe interest in that area. So, I think that's even more evidence that he could probably be in there. But the whole idea of the interview series is cool. I love the fact that it's like 2 Star Wars actors that are actually actively filming. So it's not like one guy's been done or something. Like they both have secrets that they have to keep, which probably in itself is entertaining for them to watch that, for them trying not to say anything too revealing.
Now, I have one other little tidbit of info from that interview as well. I mean, sure, it could be just like playful banter. It's literally the very end of the interview. But Ewan McGregor was like, oh, maybe you could stop by and we could like bump into each other sometime. And Pedro Pascal was just laughed and was like, oh yeah, maybe so. So it's like, sure, that could be just playful banter, but like we've said before, what if there's the chance that, they do a flashback in Clone Wars to that whole Death Watch scene where Din gets rescued or something, like, I don't know.
I'm trying to do the math in my head. So I think the Mandalorian was probably, let's just say he was 10 years old during the events of the Clone Wars, right? We know Obi-Wan Kenobi's taking place about 10 years after the Clone Wars. So, he's got a suit of armor. So aging him down is irrelevant because you could just have him in a helmet, and 20 years old is pretty much a full-grown adult, so they could get away with that. They could just literally have him. But like, I don't know if they would like. It's a story I don't think is that necessary to have him in there. Maybe just have him walking by, but I feel like a lot of people would probably have problems with like, oh, that fan service done wrong. He's got no point. He's just in the background,
Unless unless Obi-Wan goes off planet to Mandalore, because at this time the Empire would be taking over Mandalore.
You're right. Something. It could have ties into that, but because in the Rebels timeline, they are still not Mandalore is still not completely destroyed.
I
don't know. Like I said, it could be just obviously playful banter, but you just never know when it comes to these Star Wars actors when they talk in interviews.
Yeah, and they're good at that. I mean, they know what they're doing. I mean, they're professionals. They know how to communicate with the audience and how to answer questions and how not to. I do want to add one more thing to this week of Star Wars, actually, Chris, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, go ahead.
We always send each other stuff in the group chats and everything, and I sent the guys 2 videos this week when I was at the gym. One was of Gallius Rax giving his speech about the Empire, or I think the Battle of Jakku, but it was played with the Anakin Dark Deeds music. What do you guys think about that video? Did you guys get to watch it yet?
I'll be honest, I actually didn't watch yet.
Okay, watch that video and then come talk to me. Okay, whoever's listening to this podcast, check that out. Just type in Gallius Rax speech, Anakin Dark Deeds or Evil Deeds. It is a dope video. You feel the emotion in that speech. Honestly, it makes you want to join the Empire and join the Battle of Jakku. Like that's how strong it is.
Wow.
Okay. I honestly, Milton, I might have when I opened that video.
Mm-hmm.
I think I accidentally, it might have just accidentally auto went to another video because it went to a video, unless you sent us the video as well, the video of Luke and Kylo battling on Jakku.
Yes, I sent both of those.
Oh, okay. So I only
Yeah.
clicked on the first one. Okay,
All right.
yeah. So I missed the second one actually.
Yeah, so the second video that Ben's referencing is Luke versus Kylo Ren at the Battle of Crate, again with Anakin Dark Deeds music playing from Revenge of the Sith. And my God, that scene is so much better with that music. Okay? And I know we got in a conversation about talking about music in a future podcast. I will say Star Wars music is amazing. I mean, it works for anything, especially within that universe, but also how like it can emotionally tell a story beat. Like just listening to someone talk about the Empire or about a conflict between family is amazing how people can use this music and make it seem bigger than what it was used for in the movies or in the books. So I like those particular videos. I mean, I wouldn't say I get emotional, but like I really do feel like I'm part of that story, or I'm seeing another part of the story from a different perspective. So.
Oh yeah, the music really is a big part of this entire saga. Like, go back to A New Hope. The big things George and a lot of the people talked about that worked on that movie and the original trilogy as well as the future movies to come were the two things that had to work for the originals was Darth Vader's voice had to work, but the biggest thing was the music had to work for it to people to buy it.
Right.
And the music in Star Wars, it's iconic. Like it's up there as the most recognizable. Like play the main Star Wars theme. Everybody will know it's Star Wars. Everybody will know it just like any other big iconic thing. And the funny thing about Star Wars music is the fact that Star Wars has the most iconic music. Jaws has the most iconic music. Jurassic Park, all these franchises, and the one key connecting point to all this is John Williams. Like,
right.
If it wasn't for John Williams' like genius for this music making, like so many of these franchises would not have gone over. Like Star Wars would have potentially had big issues. Jaws, if John Williams would have never developed the Jaws theme, that movie would not work at all.
Right.
So like, his impact on these franchises alone, it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is a character in itself. I mean, there was a viral video going around several years ago. It's like the Empire, or not the Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope without the ending medal ceremony music. And it was just such an awkward scene because it's just silence and it's just, you just hear like the noise. I think you just hear noise and stuff. And it's just, what is going on here?
Oh yeah, that's great. Or I love watching the old behind the scenes from the original trilogy where obviously you're not hearing James Earl Jones's voice and it's the original actor. It's so funny hearing him talk to Leia or Tarkin or whoever just because Vader's voice is so menacing and then the actor that plays the body of Vader is just doesn't sound anything like it.
Bless his soul. He passed away. Was it earlier this year? David Prowse.
Yep. Yeah. It was shortly. Yeah, it was unfortunately right after Jeremy Bullock. It was
real bad.
Yeah.
It was like,
yep.
People were going left and right. I think there was like 3 people in a row from Star Wars. I think it was Bosk. I think it was Boba Fett. Then Darth Vader all passed away within maybe like 2 months. I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody in the chat, in the comment section, if you're watching on YouTube, let us know how your week in Star Wars was. If there was anything cool that you guys experienced that you want to share, you could do that down below. Before we get on to the news, I just want to do some housekeeping here on the podcast. For those that you are listening to the podcast, we do this every Friday night at 9 o'clock Eastern on the YouTube channel. So if you want to get involved in the chat room live and talk to us there, you can go ahead and tune in, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. So I do many other Star Wars videos with reviews and different things, as well as just pop culture in general. And of course, for the people watching on YouTube, we do this as a podcast that is released every Monday, which is Outer Rim Transmission. You can search that on any of your podcast platforms of choice, whether it be Apple, whether it be Google, Spotify, etc. I did my best to try to make this thing available on any site. If you can't find it on a particular site, let me know and I'll try to fix that. So let's get into the news for this week. And this is a disclaimer I want to let everybody know. So how we're going to talk about news going forward on Outer Rim Transmission is from reputable sources. I do not want to ever talk about anything from there's several notorious sites out there. You guys that are in a community probably know several of the names. I'm not going to mention them. I don't really want to give them credit. But we're basically going to be talking about rumors that are going to most likely happen. I don't want to, spread information that's going to get people's hopes up. So sources like Variety, sources like The Hollywood Reporter, like Collider, like we're going to talk LRM tonight. Sources like Deadline, these guys are all very reputable, have multiple sources when they release information. StarWarsNews.net, of course. Those are the ones we're going to report on. Anything other than that, if we've heard it from like a random Reddit thread or something, I'm probably not ever going to bring that kind of stuff up because I don't want to get people's hopes up. I've been there as a Star Wars fan, and it's not fun getting your hopes up. So this is stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, which is a lot of rumors, which is why I brought up that disclaimer, because StarWars.com, they just feel like taking a step back, it seems like, and letting everybody else kind of break the news for them. So with that being said, we have several stories from 2 different TV series tonight. We're going to start off with the Book of Boba Fett. This one specifically comes from the website of LRM Online. The Latino Reporter, I think that used to be the Latino Reporter, something like that. They used to be a big breaker of news for like the Force Awakens. I remember their name coming up a lot for different rumors and stuff. So they're reporting that Boss is going to appear in season 1 of the Book of Boba Fett. Now, that seems very likely. Boss at this time, we see him in the War of the Bounty Hunters. So apparently he's going to survive, or maybe he'll be in a flashback, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So Bosk is going to be just one bounty hunter. I don't think he's going to be the last. I really hope that pretty much a lot of the bounty hunters from War of the Bounty Hunters, which we talked a lot about last week, appear in the Book of Boba Fett, since they're so close together. I would like to see Dengar. I would like to see all different characters, but I'm going to throw it over to Milton first. What do you think about Bosk appearing specifically in the Book of Boba Fett?
There you go. I had myself on mute. No, it makes sense. Seriously, like it's a character that we saw. We got a glimpse of him in Empire, from my understanding, and we've seen him in the Clone Wars animation a couple times. And I think he might have been. Was he in Rebels at one point? I don't remember.
No, he wasn't.
But okay, but like he's a character. I think this is a great opportunity to flesh him out, especially just the bounty hunters in general. So again, we got one of the droids. What's that droid that was the hunter droid 88 or 81? Which one was he called? Yeah, like we got to see glimpses of those type of droids in like cartoons or Empire, but it's nice to saw we got him fleshed out in the Mandalorian.
Yeah. So
I think we can get Bosk now fleshed out to see, is there a backstory there? Is there something that is he fascinating? That will he be an ally or an enemy? I don't know. But again, this is a great medium because again, this is about the bounty hunters, the underworld, the dirty side of Star Wars. So it just makes sense.
Yeah. So specifically talking about Bosk, we last seen him dealing with Boba Fett specifically in Clone Wars, like as having actual dialogue and stuff between one another. Bosk was really like one of his mentors, actually, like growing up, doing the different jobs that they were doing in a couple of the episodes, like trying to take out Mace Windu, stuff like that. So, I mean, I would assume that they're going to be on good terms, maybe, hopefully. Maybe there might be a little fight here and there, but I think they're going to respect each other as both part of the Bounty Hunter Guild. What do you think about that, Ben?
Oh yeah, I think so too. I think there's a good chance Bosk might be our what's Carl Weathers' character name?
Grief Karga?
Yeah, I think he'll be kind of our Grief Karga character potentially. Like maybe he'll be in 2 episodes. Say if this is an 8-episode series, 8-episode first season, I think Bosk potentially, with his prior relationship with Boba, and everyone has to remember, like Jon Favreau, worked and was part of the Clone Wars. Dave Filoni obviously was. So they know that Boba and Bosk have a relationship just from that alone. So I think there's a really good chance that Bosk, he could be in it 2-3 episodes, something like that, to potentially, who knows, maybe Bosk ends up working for Boba Fett. Like, it's like that whole thing, like, oh, hey, my buddy became the new crime lord of the galaxy. Let me stop in and see how he's doing, see if I can get a job with him, type of thing. so, maybe it's going to be something like that. But with this getting out, or well, potentially getting out anyways, but with this getting out, I think there's a really decent chance of us having a much bigger character reveal in this season because, for our Star Wars live action shows, there's been a premise set. At the end of the season, there's a big something. Like, we have the Darksaber, we had Luke, these type of reveals. So like right now, Bosk is the potentially like the Grief Karga. Like who's gonna, I tagged you guys on Twitter earlier in the week, like who could potentially be the big reveal for this season? Could it be Kira? Could it be, I mean, maybe in the crime realm, like I, put a GIF on there, like could it be Cad Bane? Like if it was Cad Bane, people would go crazy. Or if it was Kira, people would go really crazy. So I think there's a chance that Bosk is kind of just the precursor to an even bigger like crime. I mean, because Bosk isn't a crime lord, but a bigger type of criminal character reveal for the Book of Boba series. And I definitely don't think he's going to be the last. But I'm really just excited to see how they really work his character. With him being a Trandoshan, like on screen, like talking, because he's going to have some dialogue, obviously. So it's going to be interesting to see the way they, the way they do the costume and all of that.
I think they can do that. I mean, because again, he's like that lizardy type character. Like, I don't know if you've seen the CW show Stargirl.
Yep.
So like they're the one, who's the Dragon King or that main villain. Like they done a good job with him. Like when you see him, they see him in glimpses. So, and I think even in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 with the alligator villain, like they made that work. Like he looked pretty realistically to communicate, move, and everything. So I think Star Wars has the technology to perfect that character's look, can have him still feel realistically, as an alien, but also interact with humans.
Oh yeah, I definitely think they'll be able to make it look really well. I mean, hey, to throw a little side note out there for anybody that enjoys fan films, there's actually a Boba Fett fan film on YouTube. It's like a little 10-minute thing, and it's great because at the end of it, I can't stop thinking about this, but at the very end of it, they actually have a post-credit scene where Boba walks into like a cantina. And it cuts to Bosk, and Bosk is like, Boba, where you been? And it's literally someone made a Trandoshan costume, and it looks like Bosk.
What?
It's crazy. Yeah, it is. It's like a 10-minute Boba fan film, and this guy, they made it looks like it's a decent budget. I mean, it's like a 5-year-old fan film now, but literally, like it's a post-credit scene. Boba walks in to the cantina, and like Bosk starts talking to him, and it cuts. But it's for them just doing that in a fan film like 5 years ago, you know, Star Wars being a multi-billion-dollar company, I think Bosk is going to look great, and I'm really interested to see him in action, though. I think because we've obviously seen Boba in action now. Now let's see what Bosk can do, because we see him in action in Battlefront, and a little bit in Clone Wars, but Battlefront, we really get him in action and we can play as him. Like, it'll be cool to see some of his fighting capabilities actually in live action.
Yeah, well, we've seen Trandoshans fight already in season 1, episode 2 of The Mandalorian, when Mandalorian gets ambushed there on that one planet. So it's cool because we know what they could do with Trandoshans already, because it's not easy, right? They're different dimensions than humans. Their arms are extra long, their legs are extra long, they got the snouts and everything. It's not an easy costume to create and all that. So, and of course, there's going to be an extra focus on Bosk, especially close-ups and dialogue, especially all that. So I'm very curious about how they're going to pull that off, because, I mean, yeah, they have him in Empire Strikes Back for 2 seconds. Yeah, whatever. But to have that more focused on him could be interesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it'll be a challenge, but I think they'll be able to pull it off, just because, even more recently, with the different creatures and things you see, look at the sequels. I mean, they pulled off Snoke, and Snoke's this moving around, decaying clone of Palpatine or whatever. They pulled him off really well for what he was. I mean, given he was motion capture, but even in the Mandalorian itself, that show, they pulled off the character that consults with Mando in the first episode, the Ugnaught.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah, they pull off his costume really well. So I think they'll be able to pull off the Boss costume. It'll be interesting though, because I'm not sure really canon wise how tall Bosk is. They might have to find someone who's really tall and lanky or something.
Seriously, he's got to be tall. I think Trandoshans. Well, not really. We see a very short Trandoshan in Bad Batch, so they have a very, very large range of height.
That is true.
Going along, we got another big rumor here, and this is not even really so much a rumor, more as a confirmation from an actual source on Twitter, from somebody involved with the Book of Boba Fett, Mig Na Wen herself. I just pulled up a couple of the tweets here. She said, her tweet specifically says latex gloves and Star Wars shorts. I know, sexy. And it says hashtag rap gift, the Book of Boba Fett, hashtag Fennec Shand. And if you look at the images, she has something here that says the Book of Boba Fett S.1 or season 1, basically. So first off, can you even make out what these boxes are? Any of you guys? Because I'm trying to figure out what this means. The tweet, latex gloves and whatever these boxes are.
I'm thinking maybe she's just trying to troll the audience or troll the fans. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's nice to see that the show is shot, it's wrapped, and I'm sure they're going to go into post-production at this point. So it's nice to get that confirmation that COVID has not stopped the world from going around, when it comes to entertainment. So it's nice to see that things are getting back into production. I know we've had movies that's been going on with the various different franchises, but when it comes to Star Wars, I know there was some issues with some shows being postponed because of COVID and everything. So it's nice to see that this show finally wrapped its first season, post-production, and we'll get in this within the next year or so.
Yeah.
So that. Yeah. So that's what I took from it. I mean, as for the boxes, yeah, they're probably just trolling the fans. That's what I mean. They're good at it. They're professionals.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have any ideas on this one, Ben?
I really had no ideas about that. I mean, I don't know. Literally, the biggest thing.
It looks like it's some kind of electronic, doesn't it? I'm looking at the yellow box. It's something that goes around your neck, and then it looks like it could have a touch screen or something.
I mean, I'm not sure what. I don't know. I mean, I mean, her character specifically was like, had some cybernetics and stuff after she was shot, but I don't, I'm not sure. I mean, I mean, maybe, I don't know. The latex glove, she's got to look good for Boba. um, I don't know though, but like, I think I didn't really read too much into that stuff. Like the biggest thing I don't know, the biggest thing with that I literally just kept looking back on was the whole S1 thing, just because, I think a lot of us, I mean, I can speak for myself by saying like I definitely thought the Book of Boba Fett was going to be a limited type series like Obi-Wan. I thought it was going to be one season, one and done. But then seeing this this basically confirmation that we're going to get a season 2, that was really exciting because now it's like, whoa, hold on here. This show actually, they might not have to wrap up all the storylines in season 1. You can open up a couple doors and we only have to worry about going through one of those instead of all 3. So it's going to be interesting to see the way they, they carve out this season, because now instead of say, I mean, I don't even know how many episodes for this show there are. Like, I'm not sure if that's been confirmed, but say if there's 8 episodes for season 1, presumably we'd have 8 episodes for season 2. So that's 16 episodes to play around with this story versus only 8 or 6 like the Kenobi show. So like it gives the creators a lot more free range to, explore potentially Boba's past, his relationships with other bounty hunters, like as we said with Boss coming in, you have other potential big things coming, like maybe they'll connect more to the War of the Bounty Hunters, maybe Kira will be in it, like those sort of things. I think it really just all points in the direction of this show has a really big potential to be something special, because we're going to see more of that gritty underworld type Star Wars that we got from the Mandalorian. But now we don't have to worry about Grogu the entire time. Now it's like, hey, we're focusing on Boba Fett. He is the big crime lord right now. So let's, see where he's going to take things.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is you said before, oh, could it be a limited series? Because we weren't sure. They didn't say. Going about the episode count, don't even get me started with Disney Plus and the episode count. I think it's just try keeping, they have to keep everything a secret, even the episode count, which just gets on my nerves because, like, Loki's out. We don't even know how many episodes Loki's out, and it's already started. It's like, just give us an idea, 6 episodes? Is it 8? Is it 12? What is it? Just to give us something to expect. But
I mean,
whatever.
It's literally not a spoiler. Like, it is not a spoiler to tell us how many episodes of a show there are. Like, on a side tangent, like then, you have a show like Mando, Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, the Kenobi show. Mando's 8 episodes. Boba Fett, we have no idea. Kenobi's only 6, and then it gets out there, like literally from the reel that Star Wars released about the Andor series, it's 12 episodes. So it's like, what is this schedule? Like, I'm always in the mindset of, I think Star Wars, I'm like, it's like the girlfriend you're having problems with. Like, hey, we need to communicate better. Let's take Star Wars to like, couple counseling, and they need to learn how to communicate a little better, like with the fandom, in my opinion. Because I think their communication, honestly, I really think the communication issues, like with Star Wars, I think it hurts part of the fandom, because then that, can stir up controversy and this and that. Like, just come out and be like, hey, this is our schedule and we're sticking to it. Like,
yeah. But as far as like the season 1 versus season 2, I think I look a lot. I look at a lot with the DC Arrowverse stuff. With they're never just one season. Like when they bring a new show on, it goes for 3, 4, 5, whatever. A lot of those are still going on. So it just gets more complex, which means it takes more time. But it means we get overall more content, and you'll find that people that are it's kind of neat because you'll find the fans will be like, oh, I'm more partial to the Book of Boba Fett series. Oh, I'm more partial to the Mandalorian series. Oh, I like the Ahsoka series more. So you kind of find like those niches where people really attach to certain characters, but then you see those characters fly away to other shows and they end up in another episode, and it's the big talking point for the week because then you're like, oh, this character Bosk is in Mandalorian season 3 episode 5. Like, did you see how cool that move was and how he talked about what he did in Book of Boba Fett season 1 episode 5? So you could really like start to piece stuff together and make it an ultimate crossover, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely make a good point. Like I said, I think, I think you're right, Ben. That Star Wars has a communication problem. Facts. I think they're trying to pull that J.J. Abrams thing about his secret box, whatever the hell he calls it, or spoiler box, whatever. That's stupid. Just come on, just say it's because I think now to think about it, I think the Loki season's like 6 episodes. Now to think about it because I found it somewhere. Oh. But that's not. Yeah, I think it's like 6 episodes for Loki.
What?
Yeah, but it's like they don't need to be a secret. Just say, hey, we got a concrete number of episodes. Then that's going to make the audience saying, okay, we need to watch because we know every episode, especially if it's a short number, is going to mean something. So I think that's important. Don't play these games. Don't be cagey. Like, I'm not a child. Treat me like I'm an adult and just tell me the number so I can mentally prepare for what I'm watching. As for you, Ben, or excuse me, Chris, talking about crossover with different shows. I mean, that's going to be nice when they start doing that. I mean, because that's going to be the direction they're going to take it. You're right. You mentioned the CW shows. They've done that. They started with Arrow, and then it was Flash, and then it was Legends, I think, was the third show or something like that. Yep. But then they took those 3 particular shows and crossed them over with various different shows they created, whether it's Supergirl, Legends, Black Lightning, whatever. Like, It all works. Batwoman, it all works. Because they build it up into time. And I think Mandalorian was a really good starting point, especially those first 2 seasons. And we've got to see, Fennec Shan and Boba Fett, and those other characters who say, okay, we now feel comfortable enough for them to start their own show and yet bring them back into other shows if we needed to cross them over.
Yeah, talking more about Book of Boba Fett, like I said, guys, we have a lot to talk about with this series. The Book of Boba Fett is apparently going to be more like Mandalorian season 2.5, and this is coming out from Collider. So I think what's mentioned in the article is you're going to have so many characters appearing from Mandalorian, like as cameos and as guests, that will make the Book of Boba Fett feel more like a Mandalorian series rather than its own, I guess is what they're trying to say from that perspective. So, I mean, I'm kind of torn on this. Like, I really did want, Book of Boba Fett to sort of stand on its own in a way, even though it is a spinoff. I wanted to see it kind of you don't want to have too many cameos because then it becomes Star Wars Rebels, where it's like the cameo show, right. And it's every other episode. Hey, we got this guy coming in, and I'd like it to kind of spread its wings and go on its own way and do its own unique flair and things of that nature. But Ben, what do you think about more like Mandalorian season 2.5 branching us over into season 3?
Well, before I found that, as I messaged you guys, I was like, man, is Book of Boba Fett going to be just Mando season 3? And then literally an hour later, literally an hour later, it's like, oh, actually, it's not Mando season 3, it's Mando season 2.5. And I was like, holy smokes. What are we potentially getting into? The only thing I can think about when it comes to this specifically is I remember, I don't know where it was. It was back months ago, back in December, I believe, right when Mando ended. It was something about one of Jon Favreau's early pitch concept art ideas for Mando. Obviously his original ideas was it was going to be a Boba Fett show, and then he had to come back on it and basically make it Mando. Oh. If you hadn't heard that before. So basically, Favreau's original pitch to Disney and Star Wars was hey, let's make a Boba Fett IG-88 show, and they were like, nah, that's too niche. So he came back and was like, let's make a Mandalorian show, so it's more general, so it's more of a general entrance for the audience. and
Mm-hmm.
they greenlit it. But one of the original concept arts, I read an article. I don't remember if it was from Collider or where it was at. But like one of Favreau's like original like article ideas, it was like a picture of like Boba Fett holding Grogu, like because that was his character. Instead of Mando, it was going to be Boba. So my thoughts on like the whole Mando season 2.5 thing is maybe it kind of like Favreau goes in the direction of maybe connecting back to Mandalorian. Like, what if he like kind of adapts that his original like pitch ideas? What if it's what if Boba goes, okay, what if our crime, to get my name back out there as like this crime lord, bounty hunter, whatever his title is going to be, what if he goes, hey, I'm going to contact the Empire or whatever Imperial remnants there are and be like, hey, I have a general idea of where this kid went, meaning Grogu. And like, what if he tries to hunt Grogu down? And what if that's potentially Boba's storyline? And that's why it's Mando season 2.5, because maybe Din Djarin intercepts him or something and, throws him off track and, maybe whatever happens. So, that mission doesn't succeed, but maybe there's a potential that's how it's going to connect, that, potentially Boba and Fennec Shand go after Grogu because, they were only protecting Grogu in the episodes just because Boba was bound by honor, because, him getting his armor back and all that stuff. But initially in that episode, before he got his armor back, he was ready to have Fennec Shand blow Grogu off the ridge up there. So like, I don't think he's too attached to Grogu, and I think there's a really good chance that Grogu is going to be the target for this series. And stepping outside of the Star Wars universe for a minute, you cannot leave Grogu off screen for too long. To me, that is such a big marketing ploy, like toys, games, in the show itself, whatever, talking points on social media. Social media dictates a lot of things nowadays. So leaving Grogu out, potentially, say if Mando season 3 isn't until December of 22, I don't think you can leave Grogu out of the talking realm of things for 2 years. I really don't. So that's what makes me wonder. So that's what makes me wonder if Grogu ends up being the potential target for Boba Fett.
I disagree. I don't think they're gonna go through all that trouble. Multiple fake outs of Grogu like going away and coming back. I think they gotta leave him. They gotta give the audience some space because he's going off with Luke. I think Boba Fett's really gonna be doing his own thing. They're gonna have to come up with another reason for Mando to join in. It can't be a flashback because it seems like that's the first time he met Boba Fett was, there, obviously in season 2. So they'll come up with another reason, but yeah, I don't think we're going to see Grogu for another couple of years. I know it's crazy to say, but they got to leave it so that there's some kind of like wanting for him.
Mm-hmm.
They got to make like a triumphant return. They can't just go to the next series, the next episode, and be like, "Hey, he's back." I think that'd be too cheap, and it'll be nice. It'll be nice to see Mandalorian work on its own without that, because we haven't seen him like the series ever really work without that. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how they go, what kind of bold risk they take now that they don't have to like not rely on that crutch, but not like embellish him too much.
Well, I think there is a chance, though, like, say if Grogu would be in the Book of Boba, say if the show's 8 episodes, I don't think we'll get any mention of it until at least episode 6. Just because the first 5 episodes probably will be just whatever general, like, bounty hunting, crime lord type content you would expect. And then I think you could, if Grogu would get involved, that is, I think then you could maybe have Boba basically be like, now that I think about it, there's even a bigger target than these measly targets we've been dealing with the first 5 episodes. So maybe that's how it could get involved. But still, I don't know. It's just really a coin flip on whether Grogu will appear. just because, like, if this is Mando season 2.5, then what's Mando season 3? Like, is Mando
Right.
season, that's my question, because my question to you guys really is, look at Boba Fett and Bo-Katan's interaction. Even like, could maybe this season of Mando of Book of Boba, could it be Boba being like, hey, maybe go and do something related to Mandalore, or maybe he decides to crave power for Mandalore, because look at this conversation with Bo-Katan. And if this potentially is Mando season 2.5, presumably the way we left off Mando season 2, Bo-Katan and Din Djarin were going to go help, or Din Djarin was going to go help Bo-Katan with Mandalore. So maybe that's how they run into each other. Maybe Boba's like, let me go to Mandalore to, I don't know, try to take it over or something.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe something like that.
Yeah, Ben, I think you answered your question right there, Ben. I think 2.5 can be clearly the stepping stone to 3. I think the first half of that series is going to be all about Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. I mean, it's going to be them establishing their power, most likely, figuring out their path, and then I think it could then lead to their own directive, can then lead to the same directive as Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian when it comes to getting Mandalore back on track again. Like, I can see that being an organic pattern, of something that can lead into season 3. Now back to the whole Grogu thing. I mean, honestly, I don't see him showing up in this 2.5 thing, because let's be real here. Then pretty much you're telling the audience Luke's rescue and coming to get him was a waste of time. It didn't mean anything. Like, we all love that Luke showed up and saved the crew, and that scene with Grogu and Luke was amazing. It's some of the best storytelling in general, some of the best Star Wars we've ever seen. So to me, I think we bring Grogu back after getting that emotional beat between him and Luke, between him and the Mandalorian. I think will be kind of a waste, and kind of saying, hey, that scene don't mean nothing right now. Like, that's not important. That really was nothing. So I really feel like we need to. I agree with Chris on this. I think we need to separate ourselves a little bit from him, bring him back maybe mid-season 3, because then the fans are going to be like, okay, where's Grogu at? We want him now. They're going to be trying to see what is his place now in season 3 or maybe season 4. I don't know. So I think we need to build the audience up to want that need again. And let's be real here. He's so popular. The toys are still selling. Like I said earlier, people have those hot toys still. They got the big stuffed animals. They got the pick. Like, it's Grogu ain't going nowhere anytime soon. He'll be back.
Well, there's all of this, and then there's one thing also that I've thought about as well when it comes to this I mean, I guess he would just call it the Mandalorian timeline. Like, this whole bit of Disney Plus shows, is it makes me wonder if, as we mentioned, Milton, with our Arrowverse shows we watch, obviously we're going to get some type of a crossover at some point between Mando, Book of Boba, Ahsoka, and then Rangers of the New Republic. We'll get a crossover between those shows, presumably. Like, who is going to be the villain of the crossover? And to me, I think all of these shows potentially could lead to Thrawn. Thrawn, I think Thrawn is going to be our, overall, it's going to be like the Thanos. Like, we're going to have all these little, battles and missions and things going on, and then potentially Thrawn being, the Thanos or whatever of this era.
Yeah, I mean, you can think about it. We still don't know who, what's his name? What's Giancarlo's character?
Moff Gideon.
Yeah, we don't know who Moff was reporting to. We still don't know that. So you're right. I feel like Thrawn, and again, you don't name drop Thrawn in The Mandalorian for nothing. Yep. You have Ahsoka as a character, but you don't name drop him for nothing. So I feel like you're right. If we get these crossover like the Arrow show or the CW shows, which they've done a wonderful job over the last 10 years. They were the Marvel Avengers of TV. So if we get that with the streaming services with Disney Plus, Thrawn has to be your ultimate baddie for that. because
Yep.
he isn't a throwaway character. You know, we don't know what happened to him after Rebels, so that's going to force people to go back and say, who was this character prior to this? Let's go watch Rebels, then watch Mandalorian, then Book of Boba Fett, then Ahsoka, Rangers of the Republic, boom, crossover, let's get it done.
Yeah.
It's just like you're forcing your audience to go back and revisit these shows.
Oh
And
yeah.
like I said, if Star Wars was smart, they bring Thrawn back as the main baddie for everyone to come together.
Yep.
Yeah, we got a couple comments in the chat I want to shout out. We got Abu Nas. He's saying, or they are saying, popping in to show some support. Hope you all are doing good tonight. We are doing just great. At least I'm speaking for all of you.
That's
I'm
my
doing great
man,
at
the
least.
Prez.
Yep.
Yo, Abu, I appreciate you jumping in, bro.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And your brother, Christopher, he's also saying the Boba Fett books were some of the best ever, going back and showing that would be really cool. He's actually right on to our next topic we're going to get into. And we had something from Rotten Tomato come out that had basically Tamora Morrison confirming that there's going to be flashbacks to some degree in Book of Boba Fett Season 1. So here's the exact line he was saying. And this is to, will we see more of that Boba Fett, the hand-to-hand fighting Boba Fett in the new series? Well, and this is Morrison saying, well, we can't say too much, but we're going to see his past and where he's been since The Empire Strikes Back. Somebody pointed out that he's been kind of stuck in this one place, and now there's that time to actually go back in time and check out his journey and find out more about him. So I'm really excited to see that confirmed, basically saying, well, we're going to go back in time because, 5 years after Return of the Jedi, there's a lot of time. I mean, he's seen with that cloak as if he has the Tusken Raider garb and the weaponry and he knows how to fight with it. So I want to see how he got brought up after Tatooine, about how he survived the Sarlacc pit, and maybe just maybe this would really be awesome if they made references to the War of the Bounty Hunter series that we keep talking about every week here, because I think there's some really good storytelling. Again, especially if they have Kira involved in this in any way, I think they're going to need to have flashbacks to that specific comic book for really people to understand what the heck is going on. So what do you guys think about this?
I think it's a really good idea for the show, just because it gives you flexibility for the storytelling. And it'll, again, we always reference the Arrowverse, but it's such a good reference point. Like the Arrow show, the Green Arrow show specifically, they do that through the entire series. Like there's always a flashback going. There's always the B plot storyline flashback going on. So maybe the B plot is going to be the whole Tusken Raider backstory, or it's going to be, flashing back to the War of the Bounty Hunters, that sort of thing. Like, I really think that is going to be the way it's going to go. And, it would be really cool to see potentially them adapt some of the War of the Bounty Hunters comics, like just adapt it, onto the screen. Like, if it's a flashback for 3 minutes to one of the comics, cool. Like, I think that sort of connectivity is so essential, because then you have people buzzing about a cool scene that happened or whatever. Like, for example, say if you have the whole scene where Boba had his name as Django and he was fighting and all that stuff, blah blah blah. Like, if you have that scene, and then you have them go and talk, have Star Wars release Jon Favreau talking about that, how they connected it to these comics, blah blah blah. Then you'll have people going, wait, there's comics about this really cool badass stuff Boba Fett was doing. Let me check them out. That type of connectivity, I think, would be a gold mine for them to do with this series, just because Boba Fett, he may not have very much screen time at all, that's for sure. But he is such an iconic character. Everybody knows who he is, for the most part. If you're a general Star Wars fan, you know who Boba Fett is. So it really makes me think this is a really good opportunity for them to push the comic books, to push the other books that could be coming out, push the outside material outside of live action, but also connect the comics and things to live action.
Yeah. No. I think you're right, Ben. So just to piggyback a little bit, I guess my biggest thing for this particular part of us reaching into Boba Fett's backstory, even just pushing his character in general, I really hope that we get more of his life during like after he lost his father, because again, you don't name drop Jango Fett in these comic books for nothing. Like, you have to like show us what was that evolution from we saw the boy at Geonosis watch his pops get his head cut off. You know what I'm saying? Like, now we got some of that story in Clone Wars, but I want to see what he was like as a young adult before we knew him in Empire. You know what I mean? So I want to hope they flash back to that, like you said with the Arrow shows. Give us that format. It worked, especially for his first 2 seasons. The best part of that show was the flashbacks a lot of the times in the first two seasons of Arrow. You can give us that in this Boba Fett show or whatever format you want to put it. I just hope these creators and storytellers, this might sound like I'm being negative, but I don't mean it that way. I just hope these creators and storytellers really flesh out this character in a sense of like, okay, he's always been popular. Let's heighten him up and make him even more badass, but tell it in a way where people are scared of this character. Audiences are scared of this character. He was always mysterious. Let's not forget that, because I don't want him to make it. I'm fearful that they're going to make him like they're going to make him, I guess, watered down, and that's my fear with Boba sometimes.
I don't have any doubt. From the moment he stepped on the scene in that first sequence when he just tore through all those stormtroopers, Robert Rodriguez, the guy that created that scene, is one that's involved with the series. So right. I feel perfectly fine. They'll do justice for Boba Fett.
And I don't disagree with that, because we always saying during our review last year how much we love the violence with Robert Rodriguez, and he's known for being hyper violent, being real aggressive with his visuals. Like I said. But is Robert the one actually writing the scripts and really fleshing out that character in this particular part of Boba Fett's development? I don't know. He's involved. We understand that. But let's be real here, though. Some creators might take liberties with it. That's my only fear. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm trying to give Disney Star Wars the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to do that sometimes with our iconic characters, because we all know how they wrecked Luke in the sequel trilogy. But thus far, they have built up Boba Fett and the Mandalorian appropriately. But then we got two guys we trusted, Favreau and Filoni, who ran that particular, and with Robert Rodriguez, who's known to be a great storyteller with all those type of characters. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I really don't think you'll have to worry about that, Milton, because the main couple creatives that are working on it. I mean, from my knowledge anyway, it's Robert Rodriguez and then Jon Favreau are the two. Okay. Those are the two main creatives like working on it. So I think it'll be really good in terms of like Boba. I don't think it'll be watered down, just because I feel like we have the reassurance, because after watching the whole behind the scenes documentary on Disney Plus from this past season of Mando. You have Robert Rodriguez, literally say like, Boba Fett's a legend, so, he needs to show it, basically. So that's why they made him be so badass. And I feel like with him, really having that mindset that Boba Fett's a legend, I think there's a chance we're going to see even, greater things. Like I said, we might see a flashback to that whole, Fight Club scene, basically, or you might see a whole sequence of Boba Fett just like being a badass. Like, obviously we're going to be dealing with some type of criminals in this series. It's like, what if he like, I don't know, takes out a couple of bounty hunters, like, or hey, who knows? What if we get a reimagined one-on-one gunfight between him and Cad Bane? Like that
animated. Like that animated thing. Yeah, I mean, like stuff like that will be dope. I mean, again, I would love to see that.
Like I think there's a chance I think we're going to get quite a bit of those type of sequences, just because of the fact that Boba's such a different character. Because you gotta think about it from this way as well. Like with the Mandalorian, part of the reason the Mandalorian is a slower paced show is because of Grogu. Because Mando has to protect Grogu at all times. Boba has nobody to protect but himself, because Fennec Shan takes care of herself. Boba takes care of himself. Like, that's pretty much it. So, like, in terms of Boba, he doesn't have to worry about, oh, man, if I go into this, really sketchy area, do I got to watch this little kid? He's literally just worried about himself.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, again, I trust these two
Yep.
creators. You know, like I said, I'm hoping this is where I'm going to do my whole nerd culture of like cinema in general. I'm hoping that Filoni and Robert Rodriguez really takes a lot of story beats and umbrage from the Dollars trilogy, which was the like Fistful of Dollars movie, the Good, Bad, the Ugly, and a few more dollars by Sergio Leone. Take a lot of those story beats when it comes to, I think, Mandalorian, how they use Clint Eastwood's character in that particular trilogy of films. I mean, everyone who is a fan of cinema of that genre would tell you those films work because of certain story beats of the character. He's very mysterious, throughout that whole trilogy. We do get to see the emotional side of that character, even though he seems to be very hardened. And we all know Boba Fett is hardened for what he's seen as a young boy, the lack of family, him being a bounty hunter at a young age. Like, so I really have faith that these guys can do it. I just hope they take the right story beats and flesh out this character enough to where it's still satisfying, but you don't do a disservice to the character.
For sure, for sure. So, oh yeah, we had a lot to say about Book of Boba Fett. We are going to move on to another Star Wars series that's in the mix, and that is the Cassian Andor series. So first up, we have confirmation from an actor. So a lot of these actors are talking quite a bit. Stellan Skarsgård, this is according to StarWarsNews.net, dropped the news that he had a couple scenes with Saw. I said Saul Whitaker in the notes here. Forrest Whitaker, who plays Saul Guerrera, and is going to be returning in Cassian Andor. So there you have it. I mean, it seems very likely, right? Like, Saul Guerrera probably has more appearances in Star Wars material in general, maybe than any other character. I mean, if you run through the list, I mean, this guy appeared first in the Clone Wars, obviously. If we want to go through chronological order, then he appears in the Jedi Fallen Order, which is like, 5 years or so after we see him. We see him in the Bad Batch.
Mm-hmm.
We see him in Rebels, like twice, or 3 times, something like that. And we see him in Rogue One. And now we're going to see him in this show. So he just pops up all over that dark time era of that 20-year gap from the Clone Wars all the way up until A New Hope, basically. He's in Star Wars. And I want to see more of this character because we know he's the extremist when it comes to Star Wars. He's the guy that's always taken it a little bit too far for the rebels to really want to deal with. So we already see that in Rogue One, they already don't want to have anything to do with him. So I'm hoping that in this series, we kind of see like what the fallout is. Like, what is the catalyst that really sets him to be the one that they don't want to have anything to do with. So I think that'll be really good. I mean, this Rogue One, it's basically a Rogue One prequel series. It's called, Cassian Andor, and we'll talk about another person in a couple minutes here. But yeah, this is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is actually one of the show besides Obi-Wan. I'm pretty sure I went on record and said this before. I'm looking forward to this particular show because, again, loved Rogue One from beginning to end. That movie was a perfect setup, a perfect lead into A New Hope. As for Saul Guerrera, I think his character, I mean, let's be real here. Forrest Whitaker is a great actor. We all know this. No matter what he's in, he brings an A performance. I loved his performance as Saul Guerrera in the movie. I mean, to me, it worked. He was a character that was battle tested, hardened. He lost his sister, I believe. He lost his people. Like, he's an enemy of the Republic or the Empire. So it just made sense, and it makes sense for him to be in the show. I mean, again, Cassian Andor, let's be real here. I mean, he probably had somewhat of a relationship with Saul, and Cassian's parents probably had a relationship with Saul because I remember in the novel, they say that Cassian's parents, were they separatists or something at one point?
They were,
Yeah, so like, I'm sure they probably ran across each other some way, shape, or form. So.
Oh yeah. They he just pops up all over the place, and that relationship between him and Mon Mothma is something that's super interesting as well.
Right.
So Ben, what do you have to say about Saul Guerrera appearing in another Star Wars story here?
Well, as you guys know, I'm not the biggest fan of Saul Guerrera in Rogue One. But I think it'll be really good for the character. I think there's a good chance that I don't think we'll see him too often. I think he'll be kind of like how Bosk is, how we were saying, two, 3 episodes. I think there's a chance, Saul's going to be like maybe a 2 or 3 episode character, and then he'll be like, oh, I have to leave because I have to go, go off with his group of rebels, because the big thing is with Saul, I believe at this point in the timeline, Mon Mothma and a lot of them view him as an extremist. So, maybe Saul, he'll do something with Cassian for 2-3 episodes, and then he'll leave, or maybe Mon Mothma confronts Cassian and is like, you cannot work with this guy. Like, we can't be associated with him. So maybe there's a chance that we're going to have something like that happen. But as on a whole, I think it's really good to include his character, because again, it's not like, some of our critiques of like, oh, you're making the Star Wars universe smaller, bringing in another person from next door to stop by for a guest appearance, because this appearance from Saul makes sense for the story, for the time period, and for everything that's going on. So I think it's a really good choice from the showrunners and people involved to bring him back.
Yeah, and he's not the only character, because we also have confirmation from the direct.com. They're reporting that Orson Krennic, played by Ben Mendelsohn, is set to return as in Cassian Andor series. So there you go. Now you have Imperial character, and I've been wanting to see something like this because he has such a presence. Like, Ben Mendelsohn is one of the best villains in Star Wars, period. Like, I just love how he bickers with, Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader, and just seeing how certain people fit into the Empire and how they want to get their way, and sometimes they can't get their way, and sometimes there's backstabbing and other deals going on. He just played right into Grand Moff Tarkin's hands. So this is super interesting, because having Orson Krennic in this could give us like our perspective into the Imperial cog of the machine, and like we could have one B story dealing with Orson Krennic, and one C story dealing with Saul Guerrero, and the main story dealing with, Cassian Andor. You could have multiple stories set. Now you can have that focus and that perspective from the Imperial point of view.
Well, Chris, my question to you is, in the timeline, do you know how where Cassian takes place in terms?
Yes.
In relation to Rogue One?
It takes place literally the same time era as Star Wars Rebels, about 5 years before A New Hope.
Oh, okay. So the events of Catalyst would have been even before that.
Oh yeah, they happened within the first 3 years after. Yeah.
Okay. Well, see, because what I was thinking is maybe are we going to get some connection to Catalyst potentially, having Krennic involved, because Krennic during this time period he would be involved with the whole Death Star project. So.
Oh yeah.
Maybe. I mean, is there a chance we could potentially get, Galen Erso popping in? Like if it's Death Star related.
I don't see, I don't look that much at IMBD, but I don't know if,
right.
We got, what's his name actually doing much right now. I could be wrong.
Oh, you mean Mad Mikkelsen?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name.
Well, no, it's all good.
That's what I was wondering is maybe he could be a surprise character for that series, because at that time, during that time, Krennic's really working on the Death Star project, and obviously Galen is a big part of that. And then going into Rogue One, you have all the main leaders really of the rebellion not really believing the whole Death Star thing to begin with. So maybe we'll see some of the rumored perspectives about the Death Star. Maybe Cassian won't specifically obviously bump into Galen or anything like that, but maybe Cassian will be around, where they're getting kyber crystals around or weaponry around or something around related to the Death Star, where he starts kind of getting a feeling that something more is going on here. So maybe we'll get connections to the Catalyst book or to the whole Death Star project for this thing, because they said this is going to be a spy type series. So
Right.
there's gonna definitely be a scene where Cassian's like probably spying around the corner on Imperials or something like that.
Yeah.
Like where he's listening in. So maybe we get like a name drop of like the Death Star project, like things like that, as a potential part of this show.
Certainly,
Go
certainly.
ahead, Chris.
No, I was just agreeing. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I was say I think you make great points, Ben. I think honestly, I'm hoping this show goes on for at least like 2 to 3 seasons, which I doubt. And the reason why I say that is because I want this show clearly to be about Cassian's, I guess, rise to where he is at the end of Rogue One. But I want this show to be about the honestly the build of the rebellion, but also the build of the Empire. Because honestly, can you honestly tell me, as fans or just viewers of the films, have we ever seen that 19-year gap of how the Empire was formed into how they became a powerhouse over those 20 years? Like, we've gotten glimpses, whether it's from Rebels, the end of Clone Wars into Bad Batch. We got a glimpse of it, and New Hope, and in the original trilogy, all that stuff, and even Rogue One. But I want this show to particularly show us the characters that we love from Rogue One and how they got to where they got to, but also the overall entities of the organizations that they work for. Like, Cassian didn't become a rebel just because. His parents were separatists before. So how did he make that jump from being a family that come from a family that are separatists to being a rebel? How does Orson Krennic and the Old Republic gain all this power and to get where they need to get to in the beginning of New Hope? Like, I want to see that. Like, that's something that I think as fans will crave. That's one of the best parts of watching the Bad Batch, is seeing the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's one of the bad part, or one of the great parts about watching Rebels, was seeing the rebellion being formed. I mean, it's stuff like that that's like, man, we want that backstory. We want that. Like, so I'm hoping Cassian gives us more of that backstory, not only of the characters, but also of the universe's like two main, heavyweights, Rebellion versus the Empire.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going for with the show. It's what the people want, is a live action story that's Star Wars focused exactly in that Rebel versus Empire struggle, and that's really at the heart of it. Like that 5-year run up to A New Hope, that's when we start getting those factions of the rebellion kind of up and armed, and they're actively fighting. Before that, it might be too small of a story, so they want to make sure that they're going to have large enough forces to really make like Star Wars out of this. So we have a couple of smaller stories I just want to briefly glance over. Just today, actually, they just surprise dropped this. We have the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order video game is now getting a next gen or current gen, however you want to look at it, release. So they are getting up-res textures on the PlayStation 5 as well as the Xbox Series S and X. So if you have the game already, great. The great thing is it's just free. If you just log into your PS5 or your Xbox, I know at least Xbox will automatically update it for you if you already have those systems. So really cool stuff there. I haven't got a chance to play it yet because I didn't have Jedi Fallen Order on my hard drive yet, although I've beat it like 3 times already, and I'll probably still try to play through it one more time, having the up-res visuals and all that, because the game really is beautiful. And another thing, the last story this week is, speaking of Rogue One and Cassian Andor, they have, I don't know exactly where this came from, I think there was like a Hasbro live stream or something like that. They actually dropped news that we are getting like the full line of the Rogue One hero characters in the new Star Wars The Black Series packaging, which will include, Cassian, Galen Erso, all those guys, Baze, Chirrut, Jyn Erso, and there's also other Black Series that don't have anything to do with that. Like, they're going to have Revan re-released. They're going to have the Clone Trooper Phase 2 re-released. There's going to be a vintage series, Bo-Katan. There's just a lot of images. If you guys Google them, you can go ahead and find them. But all I know is, like, I see all these cool images, and I know that I'll never see them in the public because, here in New Jersey, they just I don't know if there's people headhunting for these things and immediately they go on the shelf, or the stores just don't get Star Wars figures anymore, because it's a pretty sad sight on the shelves. But I do want to leave us with just enough time to, of course, talk like we always talk, the Bad Batch. So this is your spoiler alert for anybody that has not watched the show. You can pause this and listen or watch it later. So this is season 1, episode 7. And this is Battle Scars. So in this episode, we have the Bad Batch. They are still working for Sid, and they're doing a job. They return, and they encounter a shady character in a cloak from the last episode. It turns out to be, my theory was correct, Rex is in fact there, and he is giving them all the information they need to know about getting those chips out of their head ASAP. They go to Braca, they go to a Jedi cruiser just like Rex did at the end of the Clone Wars to remove his chip. Of course, Wrecker goes bad just a few seconds before they are able to get him under the knife, but they're able to stun him, and in doing so, all their chips are removed. And, well, they do split paths between Rex and Hunter without Hunter saying that he ever needs help. He knows how to call him. So that was the episode. My quick thoughts on this episode were, this is really the turning point for the Bad Batch. I feel like Act 1 is over. This was a moment that I didn't even expect to have happen, right? This was unpredictable to me because I knew Wrecker was going to go bad, but I didn't realize that they were all going to get their chips removed like this soon into the series. So this really opens the door a lot to potential storytelling. There's like one more clip that we haven't seen in the trailer. So from this point forward, it's pretty much like all new stuff happening for the back half, because it's sad to say, but we're pretty much about halfway through this first season, and next week will be the halfway point. But this episode really hit the feels more than any other episode, I think. They've been doing a great job of building up that companionship between, or that brotherly love between Wrecker and Omega, and the fact that we see, Wrecker kind of pouring out his heart to Omega after he realized what he was doing and he couldn't stop. I think that was a really good performance by help me with the names. I am doing very bad with the names.
Bradley D. Baker. Yeah, Bradley D. Baker.
There we go. D. Bradley Baker. There we go. Yeah. So that was my overall thoughts on the Bad Batch season 7, or season. Hopefully, it has season 7. That'd be great for 7 seasons of the Bad Batch, right? Just like Clone Wars. It could be. I'm gonna throw it over to Milton first. What'd you think about this episode, man?
Love this episode. It's probably my favorite episode besides the premiere. Because what I liked about this episode is they weren't wasting time about these chips. Like, we've got to figure out who that was Rex. He's like, listen, y'all playing around. These chips is no joke. Get them out your heads. Stop bullshitting. Get it done. And I loved how the story just progressed to get to that point. Because let's be real here. If this was a 22 episode series, this would have dragged on for another 4 episodes.
Yep.
This is 16 or 15 episodes this season. So I just loved how they made it urgent, and we got to see from last week's setup that, hey, something's about to go down if these don't come out ASAP. And we saw that. And Wrecker was a completely different character. And he's superhuman strength or whatever. That's his special trait or whatever it is. Like, and he could have killed every single one of them literally could have crushed their throats. And like, we saw how monstrous and frightening he was. He kind of reminded me of like a Jason or Michael Myers type character. Because he was relentless. He wouldn't stop until they knocked him out and he went under the knife. And again, it was nice to see that emotional beat between Omega and Wrecker, because you get to see their relationship form. It's kind of like a big brother, little sister type thing. And he's like, hey, I'm going to make you into a badass, but you're the only one that I can be soft with like that, because, we got that relationship, which is awesome. And then it makes me wonder for the future, okay, what happened to these troopers now that the chips are out of their heads? Like, where are they going to spin off to? Because clearly we don't hear about them in the original trilogy nor in the sequel trilogy. So it's like, okay, somehow do they die? Do they just go off to live and just stay out of the way from the Empire? Like, at this point, what's their purpose? And my final point is, I loved how I think the reason why I liked this episode so much was because it was about them. It wasn't other characters involved. in the sense of like the person that they're working for. I forget, always mess her name up.
Sid.
They're not. Yeah, they're not doing a weird mission or whatever. It's just their family unit. And I'm thinking this is why I like these part of the shows because, again, it's called the Bad Batch for a reason. I want to know about their dynamic and how they're having their struggles and what they're going through. I don't care about other characters that I don't care about. I want to focus on these guys. And I think they've done a really good job at keeping, especially in this episode, keeping the focus on their main objective, but also their inner relationship together. So, again, it's probably my second favorite episode thus far.
Man, that is high praise. What about you, Ben?
Oh yeah, I would have to say, this is most likely either my first or second favorite episode of the series. And just to echo all of the points that both of you have said so far, I thought it was done so well. Like the character relationships, like as Milton said, they focused on our characters. Like there wasn't like any weird like go find this alien thing or do this thing or do this thing. Like it was just a concern of our characters, like, we need to get these chips out. And then, as I've said all along, Omega continues to be my favorite character this series. Like, from her perspective, like, just seeing her character grow more and more is a big part of the reason why I'm enjoying this series so much, because it's great seeing, like, her curiosity, like, wanting to, like, explore things. She's growing up. But also she's like, I loved seeing her and Wrecker basically, it's like the whole, let's take our parents' credit card and go spend it type thing. Because, Hunter's talking to Sid. Yeah. And she's like, oh, well, whatever the food was called, I don't even remember. It was a weird name. But anyways, basically, there's a lot of charges getting put on your tab here. Like, that's where all your money's going. And he's like, what? And it cuts out. And Hunter and Omega are out there just, like, scarfing down food. And, Wrecker and Omega are out there, just scarfing down tons of food. And, that type of a relationship was a really big part, that played into the later moments of this episode. And also, I think a point people may have overlooked, we've all had our issues with Wrecker this series. Like I definitely have, because I thought his character's been so over the top, like just in your face, etc. And we all kind of just viewed him as like the big dummy comic relief annoyance at times. But this episode really shows he actually is one of the most mentally strong clones out there. Because if you guys think about it, the only other clone to fight off the Order 66 order was Captain Rex, and that was literally for just like a half second, so he could slow it down for Ahsoka. Right. Like Wrecker, when he was getting ready to kill Omega, he was slowly saying it because you could tell he was fighting the urge to do it because he has such a strong connection to Omega, and that gave him just enough time to not to like take him out. So like. That really shows, and it puts a different perspective, I think, on Wrecker. Like, sure, obviously going forward, he'll still be goofy and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it also shows that his character is a lot more mentally tough than what we could have potentially thought leading up, to this episode so far.
No, I think that's a good point. From what we know from watching the show, Wrecker, was it Echo and Fives were the one, even Rex, weren't they the ones that kind of they were fighting the inhibitor chips? They're the ones that we saw the conflict. I think those are the main ones. So you're right. I think we got to see a lot of that mentally toughness of Wrecker. I think it helps that he is a genetically enhanced clone. But like I said, I thought this episode, and I know we're gonna rate this soon. I thought this episode legit was very strong when it comes to character development. And you're right, Chris. We're now at a point where the show is going to change, hopefully, in the sense of like, okay, this now is going to be what's going to be the purpose now for these clones? Because even Hunter said, like, we're still trying to figure out our purpose. So now for the show, what's going to be your purpose for moving forward for the next 8 episodes or so?
Yeah, well, I think Oh,
Oh, I was gonna spin it off into a different topic. So I mean, I'll let you finish what you're gonna say real quick.
no, I'm guessing you most likely were gonna say you're gonna bring up the end of the episode.
No, I was gonna bring up something else
Oh,
actually.
oh, okay. See, what I was gonna say is I think Milton, just connecting with your point for a quick second, just based on the end of the episode, that scrapyard guy like saying alert the Empire.
Yep.
I think this is definitely the turning point because I think this very next episode we're gonna jump right into potentially like Crosshair like trying to hunt them down or something.
Finally coming back, man.
That's what
Let's
I
go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah.
That's what I want.
I think the stuff with Sid is gonna come back to bite him in the butt though, because
Yep.
they're in debt to her now, and I think that is gonna be like another entity that they're gonna have to watch their back for because she's connected to the Hutts. She can always get, Jabba to help out, send in a couple goons to go track them down if they're gonna kind of like they're already on thin ice with her. Like they keep, talking back. Hunter keeps talking back to her and saying all this nonsense about but and they're getting the information fed that they gotta start looking at the morality and the ethics of these missions that they are taking. So I think they're gonna just leave her at one point, and she's gonna
Right.
send people after her because they owe her money.
Yeah, and I'll
Fennec
say
Shan's
this
still
though.
around.
That too. I mean, she's gonna come back. Let's be real here. But let's be real here, y'all. They're not just average clones. Like they're not garbage. Like these guys are elite of the elite. They're called the Bad Batch for a reason. And she doesn't really know that. Sid doesn't know how special those clones are. So if she decides to send some goons or other bounty hunters around, it ain't gonna end well. Like I'm sorry. Like they're gonna wreck those those other bounty hunters. Like they're not garbage. They're not the stormtroopers of the Empire. And like the clone troopers we know, even regulars or regs they call it, they're all nice. They all can shoot. They all know how to be a good soldier. They all know how to strategize. So you're not going to just send a nobody type of bounty hunter. So it has to be somebody, whether we heard of them or not, that's special enough to counteract how military trained clone troopers operate.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, to me, I'm just like, man, when you're dealing with this type of stuff, you need to call in a special bounty hunter. So I think it's either Fennec that could get more involved. But again, I'm just hoping for Cad Bane at some point.
I feel you. And
Like,
here's my negative about
just-
everything
I
when it
just
comes to this
hope.
part. Here's my negative, okay? Knowing how Disney sometimes can be on their BS, okay? I can see them bringing in some regular old bounty hunter who's nothing special and somehow besting the Bad Batch, which would infuriate me because that makes no sense story wise. Like again, that'd be like sending in a nobody Jedi hunter wrecking Luke in his prime, and that makes no sense. But knowing Disney, they might try to pull that crap. So again, if that happens, we're gonna have a problem. In that particular podcast, I'm going to lose my shit. Just saying, Chris, I'm warning you now.
The only thing I could see potentially, what if? I mean, here's something for you guys. Like we know, based on I believe it was a couple episodes ago when Fennec mentioned the bounty on Omega. Like, so we know there's bounty hunters out there potentially looking for her. What if, this could be an early test for Boba Fett? Maybe Boba Fett fails because, this was only a few years after. I mean, he still would be young at the moment. So, like, what if Boba Fett tries and gets his butt kicked but the thing is, maybe he gets his butt kicked by, he has to have all 5 of the Bad Batch beat him. Like,
Right.
Could be. I want to bring up the conversation about the whole Wrecker in Order 66 and how he reacts to people that aren't Jedi, because that was my big thing, is how are you going to make this moment feel special when there's no Jedi around? Okay, he turns into a different person, but but he's got no Jedi to kill. How does he react? What does he do? So I thought it was pretty cool how we actually see how a clone deals with almost like rebels in a way. It's like you're sympathizers to these people. You're gonna die, you know. So they just simply react to people that are deserters. It sounds like he's able to figure out that they are not regular clones, and he tries to kill them. What do you guys think about that twist?
I thought it worked. It's consistent. It's consistent storytelling. You know, like we saw how Crosshair was whenever he was battling his whole issues, or even prior to like the chip going active, he was still like saying, "Hey, we got a mission to do. You know, this is our responsibility." And then, of course, when the chip really kicked in, it just heightened what he was already taught. And again, it's pre-genetically enhanced in them. You know, like Order 66, boom, either you reckon Jedi or you're wrecking your fellow brothers who are committing treason. You know, like, again, treason, we've heard that word used so many times in Star Wars. Like, that's a significant piece to these clones and to this particular universe. Like, Wrecker clearly was going off his programming, showing that, hey, you don't have to be a Jedi for me to wreck you. Like, if you're not on board with the Empire and with Sidious, it's over for you. Like, you're done.
Yeah, so what you guys think about the overall journey from, you know, getting down to Baraka, which is really awesome to see as a fan. I mentioned Jedi Fallen Order before. That's a huge planet in the game, so to see that was really, really neat. And seeing we're gonna get another episode with Baraka, which will probably be the next episode, because I know in the trailers we've seen the ships breaking apart the Jedi cruisers, which we didn't see in this one, I don't believe. So I think this is kind of like a two-parter, which is going to be cool. But what'd you guys think of like the journey with? I'm guessing that was like a Dai Noga. That was, you know, they always got to throw a creature into Star Wars every once in a while.
Yeah, I'll keep this one short because I haven't played Jedi Fallen Order yet, and I think you said that same planet's in the game, correct? Okay, so again, this is why I love the animation side of things, because we get to see different planets. We get to see a battled, wrecked planet with like post Republic ships. Like, again, I didn't expect that to look like that. Whenever they said like, "Oh, we're going to go to this planet," and then boom, it's old Jedi cruisers. Like, that was tight. Like, one of the best parts I like about The Force Awakens was seeing the ships in the Jakku sand. Like, that was dope to me, because I'm seeing like stuff that's familiar, but it's also new. So in the sense of this, like, this is crazy. This is one of my biggest complaints about the later films is give us more planets that are different. You know what I mean? Like, the animation does such a good job with that. And so I thought it was a perfect thing for this show to show us more of Star Wars lore and the universe and the world in general.
And here's the really cool thing, because Jedi Fallen Order, it's like 5 years after the events of what we're watching right now. In this game, in Bad Batch, right? Basically what happens, I'm going to try to keep this like as spoiler-free as possible. There's a battle that goes over Baraka in the video game, Jedi Fallen Order. A lot of ships fall down to that planet, you know, obviously. And they just, the Empire at that point just says, screw it. Since there's already so many ships here to begin with, we're going to just ship all the Jedi cruisers here and have them broken down while this planet's already littered with half the ships anyway, basically is what happens. So what's really neat is, like, obviously it's the turn of the Empire. So the planet is still, like, sunny. There's still, I believe, blue skies maybe and stuff. I have to go back and look at it because I just came up with this thought, like, literally just now. And by the time we get to Jedi Fallen Order, the planet looks like it's been in like pollution for years because it's actually all dark and it's always raining, and you could just tell the color palette is completely different because it's been like 5 years of them just breaking down these ships and like all this pollution. And so that's what I love about Star Wars. Like, we're seeing they paid enough attention to the detail where, like, oh, here's a planet before all this stuff really happened, and 5 years later it's like the planet's already trashed completely.
Yeah, like, that's all. Like, again, I haven't played a game yet, and I will eventually. But that's such a good thing. That's just small details that I wish they would just carry on later in the films. You know, and again, I'm gonna keep saying this, and people are gonna say, "Oh, Milton, you're just taking it too far. You always complain about the movies." It's not that I'm trying to complain about the movies. I'm just pointing out the facts. Like, if you really want the fans to be unified and really enjoy this property, yes, make it different, but pay attention to what you're doing. Plan the stuff out, Give us something new, yet it feels familiar, and give us something fresh. Like, that's all I'm saying. And the animation, who is head up by our boy Dave Filoni, does a really good job at doing that. So that's my thing. That's my little rant for today, y'all. Let's get it.
With that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you on a lot of those points, Milton. Like, just focus on like connecting things a little better, or like staying on a tighter ship with things, and it's such a good payoff, because for people that play the video games or read the comics or the books or the whatever, the shows, etc., movies, like they're all connected, and it's such good payoff points. Like, even if we don't see Cal in this series, like it's great seeing like the precursor to where he's at. So seeing those type of things, it's just a really great part of Star Wars, in my opinion. And another thing, I just love seeing like Captain Rex's old clone armor.
Yep.
Like, all that sort of stuff. Like, it's such a great point in time for Star Wars, for storytelling. Like, I love that era between episodes 3 and 4. Like, it's such a good time slot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so getting into some of our Easter eggs that I specifically wanted to point out, there's a couple fun ones here. First off, on this planet of Baraka, we have the scree rats. The scree rats are literally these creatures that Cal literally like points out in his own dialogue, like, oh, those are just the rats, and they're like crawling through as you're like climbing and stuff through the Jedi cruiser that's being broken down. And also the Scrapper Guild. Cal Kestis is part of the Scrapper Guild, and they used to be people that would actually build ships. Baraka used to actually be a place that would actually work on ships and fix them up and stuff. And now the Scrapper Guild is created to just literally do the opposite. Now their job is just to break everything down. Another interesting part here is the fact that Omega does not have a chip. And that'll be kind of the last point I want to talk about, is what's the ramifications of her not having a chip? I immediately go to maybe she doesn't have any kind of age acceleration, because Boba Fett doesn't have a chip and he doesn't have age acceleration. So I'm thinking that could be the correlation there.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, I think we even talked about it a few episodes ago, like just making some theories or guesses about it. Like, what if she's Boba Fett's sister, like, Jango's other clone? Like, they used Jango's DNA, made another potential clone, like a really skilled clone that is Boba Fett's sister, which would be Omega. Like, I mean, I think that'd be a really cool connection. And then just to see, like, say if that would potentially be the case, like, what would be the future ramifications for that character specifically in Star Wars? Like, could they move her over to live action? It really makes me wonder.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one. I mean, again, Ben, I think it's a interesting idea for sure. And they could wind up doing that. If they do, they need to make it work to a point where it don't make me feel weird about it or cringe. Because I could see them trying that and mucking up the storyline or whatever. So to me, I'd rather her be just her own individual character, and then just let her be fleshed out other ways, because I feel like that'd be too convoluted. But if they do it, I mean, who am I to say that they can't? But if they do it, just make it work. Hopefully they have a plan again. Plan this out and like how you want to connect that character to Boba Fett. But like I said, I just wouldn't feel. I think I'd be weird about it, because I'm thinking, maybe that's a little too much.
But well, let's be real though. The thing is, my question, and sure it's joking, but it is half serious. Could you not see the current Star Wars regime doing that though?
You're absolutely right. That's what I'm saying. I can see that.
I could 100% see that happening. But again, like you said, though, I would really like to have her character just be her own character, because so far in this series, as I said, she's been my favorite character. And man, if she bumps into Boba in this series and Boba says,
"Oh, my long lost brother," and I knew the whole time, but I didn't want to say anything, and be like, "Really? Come on."
If we have that happen, I don't know how I'll feel, but
That's what I'm saying. I'd be,
unfortunately, I could see that happening.
right.
But I don't know. I think her character is going in a good direction.
Yeah.
It's just going to be interesting to see how they actually connect it, and again, hopefully, it's just a standalone character.
I agree. I'd like to see her stand alone. It's just always nice. Like everything with Star Wars is always so connected. So I do appreciate when characters are created that have no legacy to anybody else and just can kind of form on their own judgments without having pre-rendered kind of expectations and whatnot. So let's get into our score and our overall thoughts of the episode. I'll start with Ben first on this one.
Well, actually, one final point to both of you. We have none of us have even talked about it yet about this episode. What do you make of Rex talking about meeting up at the rendezvous point? Who's he talking to? Ahsoka, Bail, another clone trooper? Like, who's he communicating with?
I just thought it was Trace and Rafa. Honestly, I didn't really put much thought to it.
Yeah,
I assume it's either Ahsoka or Bail. Like it's to me, it just makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I think if I had to throw out a guess right now, I would say it's probably Ahsoka. But then again, it might be Trace and Rafa because maybe they are kind of like being the underground recruits for the rebellion, you know?
Right.
So maybe it's something like that. But anyways, for my score of the show, as I said, this is either my first or second favorite episode. You know, the first episode was an 8.1, or the highest one I rated was an 8.1. So I will give this episode actually, I will have to say, I will give this episode a 9 out of 10 because I thought it was really well done. Everything about it was excellent. And, you know, there were really no holes in the episode. It was character focused. It stuck to our characters' concerns. And we didn't really worry about the Empire in this episode. Sure, you had the guy at the end saying contact the Imperials, but that is literally the end of the episode, so that's no issue. And, you know, just seeing Omega and Wrecker, as well as the whole squad's connection grow is a really big part of this show. And, you know, as we mentioned earlier in the review, like seeing Wrecker become more like, you know, mentally strong and, you know, I think it'll really put a different perspective on Wrecker going forward in this series because maybe, you know, maybe he'll be jokey, but maybe we'll have some more like smart type moments with Wrecker as well. But yeah, with all of that being said, I'll give this a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, right. Very good. Very good. I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go second this time around, if you don't mind, Milton. So what I have to say about this episode is, yes, it is definitely the higher echelon of the episodes I've seen so far. I liked everything about the dialogue and the companionship of, you know, the relationships between Omega and Wrecker. I thought there was a certain kind of dread throughout this episode as, oh my gosh, like literally anything could happen. Like at one point I thought that Wrecker was actually going to die this episode because maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe, you know, Rex was saying it's complicated or something to that effect. Like it might not work. I was like, oh, this actually could be his way out. Like Wrecker could be that person that gets sacrificed to where they really take this seriously, you know? And I was just so pleasantly surprised to see all of them getting the chips removed so early on in the episode or early on in the season in general, because that opens up the idea of, I really don't know where this season is going to go or the series is going to go, because that could have been really late in the season or even the series in general. Because I thought at one point maybe each soldier of the Bad Batch could go bad and that would be like their way out, each one like getting picked off one by one until there's none left but Omega. But yeah, overall, very good episode, kept the tension high, really was emotional. You know, the apology with Wrecker, as he was able to be conscious, which is just terrifying. Being able to be conscious of your actions and not having any control is just so damn scary. So for Star Wars to kind of act upon something like that is, I got to give him kudos for that. And for my score for the episode, I got to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Over to you, Milton.
So again, like I mentioned, this is probably my second favorite episode of this series. I love the character development. I love the relationship that we got to see between Wrecker and Omega. I thought that worked. To me, it wasn't forced. It wasn't weird. It's like a big brother, little sister type relationship. He's very much a protector to Omega, and Omega brings out a softer side of Wrecker. That's probably the only one that can do that to him, you know. So I really enjoyed seeing that. I kind of see how I am with my younger sisters. Like I come off as a hard ass sometimes to people, but my sisters are the only ones that can probably make me a softie, and I'm okay with that. So I really enjoyed that relationship. To me, there's a lot of elements of a little bit of Indiana Jones just in the beginning of it when they were traveling through the Jedi cruiser, just when Wrecker being worried about like crawling over the rope, and then that monster almost trying to eat him. Kind of remind me of Indiana Jones, like falling into snake pits, that type of stuff. That I thought that was cool, and I love those films. Overall, I love the fear factor of like, wow, when these chips activate, they're a completely different person. Yes, they're conscious of what they're doing, but they're a completely different animal, and they're pretty much hard to stop. So I love that particular part of it. I just didn't like the beginning of the episode of just like dealing with Sid and them playing around with her. I'm just like, let's move on from that. But overall, I have to rank this score as a 9 out of 10. Again, I love the storytelling. It was tight. And then we got a good appearance that was used perfectly by Rex. And we got a nice cliffhanger with the Empire now probably going to show up in the next episode or two.
Oh, yeah. Things are really heating up. The lighting, graphical design, I'm not sure exactly what his position was, but he worked on the Clone Wars. His name is Joel Aaron. And he said a cryptic tweet out earlier last week. I sent you guys that it was something in the effect of, oh, if you thought the first half was good, wait till you see the second half, or something where it's like crap starts to go down, and it starts with this episode, and he was not kidding. So I believe that this is really where things are going to pick up. These first few episodes, they did what they had to do. A lot of times we're very hard on these series in the first season, because we were even this way with The Mandalorian, because it's like, all right, I get it. We're doing this really close, like character development, really close ups on these characters. We want to see some more action or more plot forwarding. And I think we have hit that point. I think we got plenty of development on these characters, and now we're going to start to see all the puzzle pieces kind of line up as we go forward with season 1, episode 8 next week. And also next week, you guys can look forward to a lot of gaming news, or at least damn well, we better get a lot of gaming news, because E3 is literally going on as we speak, recording this on Friday. And we got the Ubisoft conference, so I'm thinking that maybe they'll at least confirm what exactly this massive developed Star Wars open world game is. Hopefully they just say it's Mandalorian or it's High Republic. They just got to give us something. That's all I care. I don't even need to see gameplay. Just tell us what story it's based on, and I'll be happy. Also, the big elephant in the room: where the heck is Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga? The fandom at this point just is throwing their arms up in the air, going, "Where the hell is it?" So we're hoping to get that news. Probably it would be displayed during the Microsoft conference on Sunday, would be my guess. And we also have the Star Wars Hunters multiplayer game that got revealed first during Nintendo Direct, and I would assume that it would probably be during the E3 Nintendo Direct, which is on this upcoming Tuesday. And, well, I mean, that's 3 games right there we could potentially be talking about next week. And who knows how many others, because, with EA not being the sole benefactor of creating Star Wars games now, there could be any other developers out there in the next couple of days coming out and saying, hey, we got a Star Wars game. So a lot to look forward to next week. And, of course, with the Bad Batch. And as always, you guys can listen to the show on any podcast app that you download, whether it be Spotify, whether it be Google Podcasts, whether it be Stitcher, whether it be all those Google Podcasts. And also, if you're listening to on podcast, make sure you go ahead over to the channel, youtube.com/Starrapter, where we do host the live stream of this very podcast every Friday night at 9 o'clock. You can follow Ben on Twitter at RealBenMaynard. You can follow Milton on Twitter at MiltonWeber7. And you can follow me, Chris, at Starrapter, where you're watching this or listening to this based on that name. That is good to for me, Starrapter, for Ben, for Milton. This was Outer Rim Transmission out.